your name right. Tristan and Priyanka. Everything's recorded, so anyone else you want to share with, obviously you can share with it afterwards. I'll share the recording. I'm going to try and share my screen now. And let's see how it goes. Okay. Let's see if I can get you all as well on here. See your faces. Can you see what's on my screen? Okay, perfect. And I'll share the slide deck as well. Let me just do that in the chat. Okay. Hey, Radhika. Cool. Okay. Let's try and do this. I just finished like 2 minutes ago, so I'm very fresh. Okay, so thanks a lot for joining. Quick bit about me, for those who don't know me. I'm a design strategist, transitioning into climate change work, also activist, communicator, facilitator, many other identities, I guess, and newly a rediscovered artist, which you'll find out later on. A few things that I love: learning, psychology, hiking, and particularly like being in or by the open water. Always want to settle down in a place where I'm near water. And this is, yeah, first time I'm doing this presentation, so please just give me any feedback, positive, negative, super critical. I can take it, I think. So how I started, 10 years ago, I was actually in like industrial design. That's what I studied. So designing real physical products, things like suitcases, truck driver seats, more speculative design of drones that project things onto the ground and all of this stuff. I then moved more into service design, which was less about always being like physical products, but more into like services. So this was a shot of me giving some like training to like over 1,000 police officers of how to connect with their local community on social media. That was like one of the most random projects I ended up doing, but trying to provide a better service for the public. I then joined a startup called Bunch, where I was designing this app for leaders to become better leaders. And yeah, very much in the sort of high growth, probably unsustainable lifestyle of a startup, but did that for 3 years. And in September, I left that job, and it was a bit of a long time coming, but yeah, wanted to just explore climate change and how I can contribute. And yeah, just recently finished this TerraDo course. Why and how my climate journey started. I mean, here are a few things. Just like, one is that I always had this value of trying to leave things better than I found them. Hate to see litter around, hate to see sort of the negative impacts of humans on nature. I also just generally had this itch, like I think I wanted to at least try jumping on the bandwagon a little bit and see if it's something I could do. Like I did think maybe it's not for me, but I needed to find that out. And also I think just the influence of like Berlin, upcycling, politically active culture versus like spending a bit of time in New York, but like center of consumerism. And like, I guess there's loads of other factors as well, but these were some of the major things I could think of that where my climate journey started, maybe a couple of years ago, where it's like more tangible things. And of course, back in the days where I was doing industrial design, like I didn't take any jobs in that in the end, because there was a lot of consumer products that I don't think the world really needed any more of. So I kind of went more into services at that point as well. When I left my job, I then sort of went on this little endeavor to try and learn as much as possible as I could about the climate space. A lot of the things on the right-hand side are like sources that I learned from. Things like Zopeful, these different communities, Climate Action Tech, Work on Climate, Low Carbon Business School. Also had the Klima app as well, which gave a lot of good tips of how to reduce my personal impact. And I wrote it all up on LinkedIn, so you can check out the article there about what my first few steps were. The end point of that was, okay, I've done a fairly good job of like lifestyle changes, but now like where is another major impact area, which is career, and that's like where I wanted to shift my focus and see if I could have more influence there. I don't know, I think some of you don't know Teradu, or maybe not so familiar with it. So I stumbled across it. I interviewed someone at my previous job who had done it, and she said, you probably need to be 4 days a week in order to do it and get the most out of it without like compromising on sleep or social life or whatever. So I didn't do it at that point, but once I left my job, I came across it and decided to do it. But basically, it's an organization who's trying to get as many people working in climate as possible. Their goal is like 100 million people by, I think, 2030. They offer lots of different courses, some more specialized, some more general. And it's basically a mix of asynchronous classes, assignments, group labs, live and recorded events, workshops, and this lovely community. I see some faces that are actually on this call, Radhika right in the center there. That was taken at our graduation. And why I decided to sign up, like I think before I started, there was a few reasons. To strengthen my understanding of climate, and discover more opportunities for me to contribute. I actually didn't think that I would necessarily get more clarity out of the course. I kind of acknowledged that I might be more confused by the end of it, because I was opening myself up to a broader range of possibilities. Actually, I have found more clarity, I think, but definitely found more opportunities. I wanted to transition my career and also expand my network and build connections. And I can confidently say all of those things I achieved. Well, maybe not the transition my career point, but that's work in progress. The other things, definitely. Some of the key moments here, you would need more context on many of these, but I'll go into some of them later on. I think the Fletcher talk is a climate scientist who has like done tons of work on like the science and the impacts of climate change, and like offers a very compelling, if not a bit anxiety-inducing talk. And I think it's a big moment in the Terra course. There's also the En-ROADS workshop I'll go into later as well. The weekly lab groups, just the idea of having community that come together weekly to talk about what they've learned, what actions they're taking. Also, like on the emotional support side, it was really useful. Also hosted some Monday economics and politics sessions, which were really valuable. And anything related to climate justice, I always found like super valuable, and I think is a really important part of the course that is you don't necessarily get elsewhere, or it's not always like the front and center. And I think every single sort of project that we did, we always had that lens to think of how can we provide a solution that's also equitable and fair for as many people as possible. Caveats before, like I was one of the most engaged people, I think, in the course. Like in the first weeks, I tried to write to every single introduction that was posted in the Slack group. And I could only do that, I think, because of the fact I had time. I didn't have a job at this point during the course. So that definitely enabled me to sort of have that advantage. But also a few other things. I have this sort of innate love of learning. When I did this like strengths test, out of 24 strengths, this was the top one. So I think that just helped me along. Also have a lot of experience in my previous job of like curating and distilling knowledge. So gives me a little bit more ability to sift through a lot of stuff and find the sort of actionable nuggets. And similarly, high tolerance for overwhelm. I think this course, because it goes so broad and because there's so much content, like many people said they got quite overwhelmed at certain points. And I sort of just leaned into it a little bit. I ask a lot of questions, maybe too many sometimes, but I'm not like afraid of doing that. I think that's my way of understanding things. The remote savviness, it's obviously a long online course. And I think like being in an environment in a like last startup where the Slack messages were insane levels, like I think that enabled me to cope a little bit with the TerraDo Slack community as well. And facilitating sessions as well. I did quite a few of those and sort of developed that skill over the course of the course. I think I'm probably already running behind schedule. I'll basically just go through the 5 assignments that we had on the course. So the first one was this vision piece that we were asked to think about the world in 2040 and having that world in which we reverse the major impacts of climate change, and asked to come and speak an event and say how we did it and what my role in it was. And for this one, I went super broad. I basically went through all of the different topics that were possible, probably not all of them actually, but as many as I could, from politics to economics to religion, spirituality to food systems, law, whatever, and tried to go as broad as possible. I kind of had a little bit of a delve into what life must be like as a politician, or at least like a head of a political party where they have to cover a lot of ground. And I just realized the importance of having a vision. Since doing this, I keep coming back to it. And the piece that one of our instructors, Katie, shared with us from Donella Meadows, a video like from 30 or more years ago, she talks about how important it is to have vision. And maybe it seems like a waste of time. You need to just get to solutions. And especially with the urgent situation of the climate crisis, you want to just get straight to implementation. But she says in this video how once you do it, you start to see seeds of it pop up in different places, and you start to actually become maybe a bit more optimistic and have a bit more hope. And I've definitely noticed that since doing this. I also found it was important for me to at least cover a range of different topics, because then that could show me what kinds of areas I could get excited by. And yeah, this question of like asking what's the future of, basically could get me excited about any topics. And like, I didn't expect to get excited about law, but like through this question, I discovered the idea of like restorative justice, which is actually super interesting. Listen to loads of podcasts about it. But also it's a great question to engage other people. Like when I didn't know about a specific topic, I just asked in these various Slack communities, and it was really an engaging question and gathered a lot of knowledge from other experts in different fields to sort of fill in loads of gaps that I had. So that was my approach for that assignment. And since then, it actually turned into an art installation. So I shared it with someone who did the course before me. She shared it with an artist friend of hers who curated this exhibition on the weekend, which started on the weekend, called Ecotopia, in this major church in Berlin. And yeah, came up with this installation idea of like actually printing off a bunch of postcards that people could then imagine themselves in this future world, write to their present day self or family member or friend about what it's like, and yeah, post it up on the wall. And the idea is that I'll collect a load of these, probably send it to people if the postage isn't too expensive, and also maybe create a little Instagram account of it as well, because there's lots of quite inspiring things that were written. You know, the idea of living in a city that's just fresh and clean, and there's no cars and all kinds of stuff. And yeah, also managed to collaborate with amazing artists as well, who produced all these sort of solar punk renderings of different cities and places in Germany, but also beyond that as well. So that's kind of an ongoing project for the next 2 months. And yeah, really exciting and happy that I managed to rediscover the artist side of things, and hopefully inspire a lot of people to like use their imagination a little bit, which I think is a really important part of overcoming some of the anxiety that comes with getting involved in climate change. The second assignment was about local context. I'll briefly cover this. Like, it was a group assignment, so we were to investigate what the attitudes are around climate change in our local area, and then share with a group and compare sort of how attitudes differed in different regions. In Berlin, the people I spoke to were quite aware of it, but that awareness quickly went into like cynicism, lacking of agency, not really sure how they could do it, and also understanding that a lot of it comes down to politics, and didn't really see a way for them to influence that effectively. So I do want to come back to this. I want to sort of prepare a little discussion guide, interview guide for other people to also run these sort of interviews in their local area, because I think the more we talk about climate change, you know, the more progress we can make. And I think that's one of the most important things we can do, is to just still keep talking about it. And I'll come back to this like climate communication point. But for me, this was a good starting point of experimenting with this climate communication. And I tried doing something where I started with just talking about the local area. So I didn't talk about climate change just yet. And I just asked like, what do you like about your area? What do you dislike? What do you want to change in the future? What do you want to stay? What do you worry about? And then that as a sort of segue into climate change, which usually there would be things that come up. And I think that's useful for people who aren't as aware of climate issues as maybe some of us might be. For assignment 3, this was one where we had 3 different tracks. 5 different tracks we could choose from action to learning to transitioning jobs to all kinds of things. I chose 2 different ones because I like to give myself more work. I started off with this En-ROADS workshop that I ran, a couple of them with my family, one with my family and one with my local climate action group. En-ROADS is basically a tool in which you can use this like basically an interactive tool to explore different scenarios of the impacts on like global temperatures, greenhouse gas emissions, all of this. So you change all of these different sliders and see what impacts it has. And I found it a really engaging way to look at the different interventions you can make and what their sort of relative impacts were. And found this part of the course also really good. I decided to run it myself. 2 kind of big takeaways from that is I thought I needed to cover a little bit of context about why the goal to get underneath 1.5 degrees is important. And like I went into a bit of content to explain why, but most people actually to engage with solutions and ideas didn't need to know that. And actually it was just sort of didn't really help. Most people were fine to have like the high level and actually bought into the goal without needing to know all of the details. And of course, I think I would want to run follow-up workshops or pick a specific sort of lever to work on, which then you can look into like translating this into tangible actions. So that was always the question that comes up. What can I do about it? So with my family, it would have been like, how can they get involved more politically to sort of influence and engage in any policies that already exist in sort of pressuring these kind of things. 10 minutes left, crazy. So the second part of this was also job applications. So I decided to do this as well. I actually wanted to do this initially, but didn't think I had time. That's why I did the En-ROADS one, because it was quite easy to turn around. I managed to do this as well. I sent off 1 cover letter. What I found it useful for is just to like put you under a bit of pressure to actually think it through. I think the process of writing a cover letter, even if you're unsure about whether you want to commit to that industry or that solution or that company yet, I think the process of even just applying for it helps you go through quite a lot of thinking. So for me, it refined what motivated me, also helped me gain like relevant knowledge through sort of targeted learning. So if I applied for this regenerative agriculture company. So through the research into that specific company, I actually gained quite a lot of learnings from that as well. And then also identifies like where the gaps might be in your skills or knowledge. So you can then, that leads directly into sort of actions you can take to try and fill those in. I also tried using this pain letter instead of a cover letter. This is why there's this dragon on the right. The idea is you have a dragon, which is the pain, and you are the dragon slayer. And you form this narrative of what the pain this organization or company is dealing with and how you have experience and expertise in order to deal with that pain point and how that leads to opportunities for them. So I'll add the link to this sort of format, but I found this a much more effective way of writing cover letters that's way more sort of, at least for me, I think more compelling a pitch. And last point was that I think almost every piece of feedback from people on my pain letter was you need to get more specific about your climate why. And I sort of ignored that feedback in the end because I think if you've got the right sort of skills that are in demand, it doesn't matter if you've like found like this really amazing climate why and you've had like your whole life dedicated to this thing and you've got so many like factors that build in, like in the end there's more jobs out there than I think there is people who are sort of qualified to work in them yet. So I think you can give yourself some good high level stuff, but you don't need to worry about it too much, I think. Or at least for me, I didn't worry about it too much and tried to not go into like crazy amounts of detail. And when I applied, they were like, actually, the fact you're even interested in this space is already enough for us. Most people just like say they want to get involved in climate. So the more you know about a specific area, the better. Fourth assignment was a solution deep dive. I won't go into any details about this really. Our project I did with another guy in the class on heat pumps and how we'll transition more into that. But I just found the questions really useful as a way of like distilling down information on a particular solution in a quite an actionable way. So these 5 questions: what's the potential impact? What are the major challenges facing the solution? What are the most impactful ways to address those challenges? How does it intersect with equity and justice? And what's the progress and who's working on it? So I think you can pretty much apply this to any solution and also know if it's like a right solution for you to be working on based on that first question. And then always like trying to follow up. I added this bonus one of like, what can you do about it? Because again, like people, if you're sharing this with someone, they want to know like how they can influence it. So you can read it also there. I used the same template. Then there's a few more things. I was running these Monday sessions on climate politics and economics with a group of people. And we had some really amazing discussions. I don't know exactly my own political beliefs yet. I'm definitely quite confused about it, but trying to work my way through it. But I think they were really effective in sort of pushing the conversation forward a little bit. Some takeaways from that for me, how it's important to understand your own political values and why you have them. So in this Miro board, there's some questions to help you actually identify what those political values might be for you. Then you can find out what policies already exist and how you can support them. So in a session with a couple of policymakers, That was one of their key piece of advice. Some of the policies already exist. You just need to like work on how you can support them. Quite like this approach of forming a steelman argument for ideas you disagree with. So we did this exercise for capitalism to try and find out what are the actual strengths in it, if there are any, because then you'll be able to have a bit of a more productive conversation with people who are more pro-capitalist, that you already have done the work to understand what are the benefits of it. But then also you'll expose some gaps, you'll expose some myths that then you can help form arguments against. And that's kind of that last point. I'm definitely not going to get through everything. Climate communication was a big point. I came up with this little model of tailoring your communication to where people are in their journey. So for me, I'm somewhere between this action and impact point. Some people are just at awareness. Some people are trapped in this like cycle of despair. So it's important to find out where people are in their journey before you start communicating with them or like sort of pitching things, by asking questions, active listening, having open conversations. And yeah, there'll be things that negatively influence them and push them back earlier in their journey. Things like doom-focused information or like other important short-term issues actually have an impact on whether they decide to take action. Also, once you're getting into the action point, like you can get caught in this analysis paralysis of having exposure to all the different solutions that are there. And then there's tons of things I think that actually help move people further along in that journey, from vision and storytelling to collective action to developing a personal why. There's a whole nother talk in this thing. 2 minutes left. My climate action plan. So I'm currently here somewhere in this like diverging towards the opportunities, which I came up with 7 of them. And some of them I'll be able to then move into more of the sort of implementation side of things. How I developed this was starting with the desired outcomes that I want, seeing where my current reality is, and then what steps do I need to take in order to bridge the gap. I came up with these 7 actions, these 7 sort of outcomes. I definitely won't be doing all of them at once. But as you can see, I tried to like prioritize this at a high level, like what am I going to be doing now, what's next, what's later. And I've also included this like care for myself one in there, which is like now, and making sure I have like 20% of my time at least to sort of non-climate, non-work activities to try make sure I make sure I rest. That was like initial way of trying to prioritize some of this stuff because I want to do all of it. But yeah, then that sort of turned into a bit of more of a roadmap. So I've tried to map out from May to December, although I've only done the first sort of 3 months. I still need to map out a bit more in future terms, but just some high level initiatives for each month. And tracking back to the objective, so I can see like activities that I'm working on, opportunities that come my way, see like how it actually translates back to this overall plan that I have. And then on a weekly level, I have this sort of planning thing where I estimate things based on effort levels. So I have this rocks, pebbles, sand. I only just started this with 2 last week. So trying not to take on like more than 2 rocks, which are like 1 to 2 day efforts, then having a few pebbles and some of these like sand activities, which are 1 to 2 hours, but can actually take up a lot of time once they all add together. So yeah, trying to plan out my weeks like this so I also don't take on too much. And yeah, the self-care thing, trying to work on my like evening routine a little bit, because that's where I'm quite susceptible to sort of doom scrolling and overthinking and all of that stuff. So that's a bit of a work in progress. we're over time. The last few slides, think how you can support me. I'm going to be publishing a lot of stuff, writing a lot of stuff. So any feedback on new ideas, frameworks, thinking that you can give me, more than welcome. Just staying connected, keeping the conversation going. The community is like super amazing for sort of resilience, I think, and going through lots of difficult times, difficult content, difficult news together. Like, it's definitely better when you have other people to support you. So just, yeah, stay in touch. And I think look out for me and look out for each other, so we sustain our own energy and don't take on too much. Please let me know how I can support you. If there's anything that's resonated with you, any skills that you think I could help with, yeah, just message me on LinkedIn or wherever. Always open. And yeah, thank you, Slide, to all of these people. I think Leanne, you're in there. Radhika, you're in there. Kat, you're in there. Everyone in the Terra course that was super engaged, super inspiring. Lots of instructors, people in previous cohorts that actually inspired me to take the course in the end as well. And some of the like new cohort that I'm having like great conversations with, and really inspiring to see like new people coming through and how I can help them as well. I wish I could give personal thank yous to all of you right now, but I will write you messages. And yeah, if you want to take the course, you can use, if any of you haven't done it yet, you can use my referral code to get 25% off for either the main one or any of the other courses. And yeah, I think that's it. That's the last slide. Okay. I'm available to answer any questions. If anyone wants to hang around, has a bit of time, I'm more than happy to stick around. So yeah, just feel free to go off mute, raise your hand, post things in the chat if you have any questions.
You did great, Josh. That was awesome. You really sold Terra well too.
Thank you.
Yeah, you did.
Thanks so much, Joshua. This was awesome. It's really cool how you shared your journey from like before the course, through the course, and kind of after. I really liked the framework that you are kind of using to plan right now. I might need to borrow that as well, because I'm in a similar boat. But I saw one of the things that you mentioned, I think that you have coming up, is that you were going to interview, like you wanted to help people seeking roles in the climate industry. And I saw that you were maybe going to interview like people that are job seeking right now. So I'm just curious, like what is that project related to, or is it just something you're working on yourself?
Yeah, I'm volunteering for the Work on Climate community.
Oh,
I've been since December actually, and so it's only 5 hours a week, or supposed to be, because it's like all unpaid. They're trying to get funding right now, so it's not the most sustainable business model right now. But anyway, I'm really happy to help, and also it's kind of mutually beneficial because I learn about other people's climate journeys through the research. But essentially the project and what I'm working on, like I'm part of the research team, so it's made up of like quantitative insights, looking at sort of market research and trends and what's happening in the overall climate industry, climate jobs industry. Also like data science stuff, so analyzing data from the big Slack community, which is about 8,000 people now, and maybe also other data sources where like we're doing projects looking at like what skills are in demand and what skills do people have, and seeing where the mismatches are and whether it's actually sort of more perception versus reality. There's definitely like a lot of people nervous or don't want to apply to things because they don't feel they're qualified when maybe they actually might be. So that's one big assumption we want to test. And then for me, I'm working on the individual insights, so more qualitative stuff. So I just kicked that off this week, where we're trying to understand at a very high level, like what are people's experiences in trying to find climate work. And yeah, interviewing people who have already found climate jobs and understanding their journey and what were the hurdles and what helped them succeed, so others can learn from them, but also people who are still in this journey. So yeah, I just sent out the first messages to recruit people yesterday, and I have 16 interviews now to do.
16, wow,
16,
that's
like 1 hour. So I think
God, that's incredible.
definitely got my plate full, and hoping to recruit some other people to support me, but it's kind of spread out over a few weeks. And
nice.
The idea is we'll use these insights obviously to inform the work that Work on Climate are doing, so we can support people better, but also